Former President Jacob Zuma is appealing the decision by the High Court in Pietermaritzburg to halt his attempt to privately prosecute journalist Karyn Maughan and armed steel prosecutor Billy Downer.
Yeah, in June, the court set aside his summons of the pair and then later granted them an enforcement order, essentially barring Zuma from ever attempting to institute the same legal challenge against them. Well, Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo is at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein for us, and she joins us now live. And Ziyanda, few people will be surprised that we're here. The former president obviously believing that that particular court will have a different finding.
Right, Ziyanda, and as you'll know, when you take a matter on appeal, you have to actually satisfy Section 17 of the Higher Courts Act, and this is the argument then that Billy Downer is making in his heads of argument. He's saying, one, there aren't any reasonable prospects of success on appeal, and he's saying there aren't any compelling reasons as a second argument for the former president to bring this matter before this court. But also, as a third argument, he's saying that if you make an appeal as prescribed in Section 17, you actually have to prove that there are certain issues that the lower court failed to adjudicate on, which would then lead to a miscarriage or denial of justice in some shape, way, or form. He's saying that by and large there is an agreement on the issues that were brought before the court regarding this private prosecution. Hence, then the granting of that enforcement order, which basically said that the former president should not try to ever bring a private prosecution against Karyn Maughan and Billy Downer ever again. However, the former president's lawyers are arguing on the basis of Section 18 of the same act, saying that they believe there is a good prospect of success, and they're arguing that there are certain issues that have not been dealt with. They're also speaking about the fact that, the granting of that enforcement order took place while they were in the middle or during a moment at which they had already indicated that they'd be appealing this matter before the Supreme Court of Appeal. So today we'll be hearing oral arguments from both sides.
All right. And what do we know about what the former president is arguing this time around, Ziyanda? I mean, is it just a rehashing of arguments already made at the High Court, or do we suspect that he may also bring forward new arguments in order to strengthen his case where you're at?
Well, it seems as though that it's by and large similar arguments, is maintaining, one, that his rights were trampled on when those medical records, according to him, were leaked. However, you'll know that the court had ruled that this was already a public document, and the issue is around whether or not his medical status was compromised, which Billy Downer and Karyn Maughan have argued was not the case, that the file that Karyn Maughan had actually been the one that had been deposed before the Pietermaritzburg High Court, and parts of that medical record were redacted, so we don't know the nature of his medical condition. Remembering, Ziyanda, that this has a material impact then on the start of that arms deal trial. But this is why then the private prosecution also formed as a basis for the delay in this matter. It also even led to the recusal of Judge Pietermaritzburg, who had at the time made comments about private prosecutions, and so by the time the former president brought this private prosecution, he felt that his comments may be deemed as a conflict of interest. So, in fact, that's in the first paragraph of Billy Downer's heads of arguments, he's basically saying that the court is now finding itself in a position where it's dealing with issues of ensuring that a litigant receives justice versus someone who he still believes is abusing court processes to further delay the start of the arms deal trial. So in terms of the types of arguments, it would seem that they're by and large the same. However, it's more on the technical issues of Section 17 and Section 18 of the Superior Courts Act.
Absolutely. And of course, that question still remains about whether or not this trial will ever begin, given how much time has already passed. Ziyanda Ngcobo, for now, thanks very much indeed. Live to us there from the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein.